Well, good morning and welcome to our online Bible study. We are in John chapter 6 today. I hope you've been following along. If you have not, there's time to go back and catch up. Tanner has all the previous days posted, so please take a look at those and join right in with us today in John chapter 6. Well, hey, in John 6, we're going to be looking at the feeding of the 5,000 plus women and children. So there's a lot of estimates as to exactly how many people are there. A safe estimate, many people say, is around 10,000. Some say maybe upwards of 20, maybe even at 30,000, but I have no idea. We know it's at least 5,000. That's a big enough number for what is transpiring here in this story. Well, as we read through this, we find out that a very interesting thing to start off with. Jesus is with his disciples, and he's been teaching, and they're on this mountainside, and there's this multitude of people. And it says that Jesus turns to Philip, and he asks them, where are we to buy bread so that these people may eat? Now, obviously, Philip and the rest of the disciples are looking around like, well, what are you talking about? That's an enormous amount of bread. When you have 5, 10, maybe 20,000 people gathered together in this one space, the amount of bread, it just blows their mind. But the fascinating thing to me about this is what it says right after that statement. It says, Jesus said this to test him, for he himself knew what he's going to do. Jesus knew what he was going to do. Jesus already knew what was going to happen, and he knew the reason why he was going to perform this miracle. But he asked Philip that question as a test. Now, I want us to be very clear on one thing is this. God never tempts us, but he does test us. He tests us. In the story of the manna, God providing manna, we see a test there. God tested the people when he provided the manna. Because he told them, you go out today and you gather enough manna for today and today only, and then you must consume all of it, and then in the morning there's going to be more. Now this would happen if the first 6 days of the week, and then on the sixth day they were to gather twice as much, because it said on the Sabbath the manna would not appear. And when we read this text in Exodus, the story, we find out that people did not pass the test, because it said many of them actually held back some. They held it back because they weren't trusting God to provide manna the next day. Here, Jesus is testing Philip, and he's testing Philip. It's more of a test of the heart. What are you going to do? And are we willing to trust Jesus in this situation? Are they willing to trust him? And so Philip doesn't know what to do. We wouldn't have known what to do. Andrew brings a young boy who has a lunch with him, and it says 5 barley loaves and a couple fish, and says, well, hey, we got this, but how's that going to feed this many? And at that point, Jesus provides the miracle. He takes what was provided, takes what was offered, and he multiplies it to feed a multitude, to the fact where it says there were 12 baskets left over. I'll be honest, I have meditated on that and wrestled with that for a long time, wondering, what does this mean, this 12 baskets? And today, I still don't know. I don't know other than that there were 12 baskets, there's 12 apostles, there are 12 tribes of Israel. 12's a significant number. Exactly why, I don't know, other than the fact that it is illustrating one clear thing. What little was given, there was much left over, much left over. As we continue along this, we're going to just kind of hop over one very, very cool and amazing thing that happens when Jesus walks on the water, because I want to get to Jesus talking to the crowd again. And so Jesus disperses the crowd, the disciples head across the sea, and then Jesus walks on the water to the disciples. And like I said, we can't spend a whole lot of time on that, but once he does that, they get in the boat, and then they head back to the other side, and then the people, these crowds, gather around Jesus again, and they're following after Jesus again. And they come up to Jesus, and Jesus tells them, he says, you seek me because you ate your fill of the loaves. And he's telling them, you're here because you want your bellies full, and that's it. They wanted him to meet their physical needs primarily. this multitude of people. He says, that's why you've come here. He says, do not work, Jesus tells him, for food that perishes, but for the food that endures for eternal life. Jesus tells them, I am the bread of life. And they become very confused about this, to the point where they leave. People leave Jesus. Jesus, this is an important thing to note, Jesus repeatedly uses the material world and tangible things to reveal the spiritual. He does this in these parables, and he does this right here when he calls himself the bread of life. To Nicodemus, he told Nicodemus, you have to be born again. Jesus was not talking about a physical, actual birth of being born again. To the Samaritan woman, he tells her, here, you must take this living water. He offers her living water, but it was not a natural spring water or anything like that. It was the Spirit of God. When Jesus calls himself the bread of life, he's not saying you must nibble on me and eat my real flesh, that I'm a big barley loaf. He's using this as a picture to them and telling them, and he does specifically tell them, it's like, those who seek him, they will not hunger or thirst again. Remember, he's not speaking physically. Because I don't know about you, but I get hungry. I still get thirsty. But he's talking about a spiritual longing. That Jesus is that fulfillment for us. That he is the bread of life. Just like the manna was to meet the needs of the people every day in the wandering of the wilderness, Jesus meets our eternal need. He is the fulfillment of all of the scriptures. He is the living bread who comes to give us life, to fill us completely so that we will hunger no more and wonder no more if we can know him. Well, hey, that's my timer. And so, hey guys, that's John chapter 6. Join me tomorrow for John chapter 7.